She saw an old woman struggling to carry her things and she helped her. Then the old woman gave her a precious substance that would change her life forever. But later someone close to her did something very bad and everything started to go wrong. But why did the substance suddenly disappear? Why did the one who stole it start running mad on the street? Sit back and find out. As we go deep into this shocking and powerful story, it was a very hot afternoon in a quiet part of the city. The sun was shining so hard and the road was full of dust. Two friends were walking fast on the street. One was Rebecca, a young woman with a kind face. The other was Harrison, a young man who looked sharp and full of ideas. Rebecca's clothes were old and her face looked tired. She looked at Harrison and said, "Are you sure this place will give me a job?" Harrison smiled. "Don't worry, I know the manager there. I will talk to him. Just follow me." Rebecca nodded. Her legs were weak, but she kept walking. She had nothing left at home. If she didn't get this job, she didn't know what she would do next. The road ahead looked very long, but they didn't stop. Rebecca was holding on to hope, and Harrison was sure his connection would help her. As they turned a corner, they saw an old woman walking slowly in front of them. She was very thin, and her legs were shaking on her head. She was carrying a big bucket of water. The bucket was heavy, and the old woman kept bending to one side and sweat was running down her face. Suddenly, she stopped and called out in a tired voice, "Please, my children, help me carry this thing. My body is weak. Succrum." Rebecca slowed down and looked at the woman. Harrison pulled her hand. "Let's go. We're already late if we don't reach there on time. The manager will leave." Rebecca looked at the old woman again. The woman's legs were shaking, and it looked like she could fall at any moment, but she needs help, Rebecca said softly. Harrison looked at the old woman and frowned. His voice was sharp. "Mama, we don't have time," he said. "We're going somewhere important. Why did you carry this knowing you're too old?" The old woman blinked slowly. She didn't say a word. Her hands were still shaking. Mia turned quickly and looked at Harrison with surprise in her eyes. "Harrison, how can you talk like that?" she asked. "She's an old woman. She needs help." Harrison folded his arms and shook his head. "This is not our problem. Rebecca, let her rest or wait for someone else. We've come too far for this." Rebecca took a deep breath. "But what if she falls?" she said softly. "What if this is the only help she finds today?" Harrison looked away and said nothing, but it was clear he was angry. He tapped his file against his leg and hissed, "If we miss the manager, don't blame me." But Rebecca was no longer listening to him. Something in her heart told her this moment was bigger than any job. Rebecca walked slowly to the old woman. She bent down and gave her a warm smile. "Mama," she said gently, "where do you stay?" "I'll help you." The woman looked at her surprised. "You will help me?" She asked. "Yes, Mama, give me the bucket," Rebecca replied, stretching out her hand. Harrison stepped back slowly, his face full of confusion. He watched as Rebecca lifted the heavy bucket from the woman's head and placed it on her own. The old woman stared at her, almost in shock. Harrison opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. He looked around, unsure of what to do. Rebecca turned to the old woman. Mama led the way. "Shefrona," she said with a smile as they began to walk. Something strange happened. The sun that had been so hot just moments ago started to hide behind the clouds. Harrison looked up and felt something in his chest. It wasn't anger. It was the feeling that something big, something he didn't understand was about to happen. Rebecca followed the old woman into a quiet pathway. They reached a small house at the end of the road. The house looked very old. The walls had many cracks, but the ground was clean, and the flowers by the corner looked fresh. Rebecca stood still and looked around. "Is this your house, Mama?" she asked softly. "Yes, my daughter," the woman replied, pointing at a short tree beside the door. "Please drop the water there." Rebecca walked slowly to the tree. She bent down and placed the bucket carefully beside it. She stood up and wiped her face with her hand. "I'll be going now, Mama," she said just as Rebecca was about to step out of the compound. The old woman called her back. "My daughter," she said gently. "Wait." Rebecca stopped and turned around. The woman walked closer and held her hand. "Please," she said, "go to that corner over there. You will see a small native pot. Bring it to me." Rebecca walked to the corner. Her fingers shook as she picked up the small native pot. She turned and walked back quickly holding the pot with both hands. "Here, Mama," she said, handing it over. The woman smiled. The old woman held the pot carefully. She untied the red cloth and opened the pot very slowly. Rebecca leaned forward, her eyes wide. Then the woman brought out something shiny. It was a bar of gold. Rebecca's eyes grew wide. She had never seen gold in real life before. The woman smiled and looked at her gently. "You are kind," she said. "People like you are few." She placed the gold in Rebecca's hand. "Keep it for 7 days. Don't sell it yet. After 7 days, you can sell it and use the money to make your life better." Rebecca stared at the gold in shock. Then she dropped to her knees. "Mama, thank you," she said, her voice full of joy. "God bless you. I didn't expect anything. I only helped because it was the right thing to do." The old woman nodded and touched her head gently. "Go, my daughter," she said with a smile. "Your kindness will open more doors for you." Rebecca stood up, still holding the gold tightly. Her eyes were shining. She turned and walked away slowly, her heart full of thanks, with a big smile on her face. She made her way home. She kept looking at her handbag where the gold was hidden. She wanted to scream, but she held herself as she walked. People looked at her and wondered why she was smiling alone. But Rebecca didn't care. She was thinking about one person. "Harrison, I need to tell him everything," she said to herself. She walked faster, almost running, when she reached the street where Harrison stayed. She saw him in front of his house holding his phone to his ear. Her smile grew bigger. She waved and called out, "Harrison!" But Harrison didn't wave back. He dropped the phone slowly and looked at her with a hard face. Rebecca stopped in front of him, still smiling. "Harrison, I have something to tell you," she said. "You won't believe what happened after I left." But Harrison raised his hand. "So you left me just like that?" "Rebecca," he said, his voice cold. Rebecca's smile faded. "I didn't leave you. I helped the old woman, remember?" Harrison shook his head. "I thought you were serious about getting that job. But no, you threw it away, just like that." "Do you think life is a joke?" Rebecca looked down. "I know, but you always say you want a better life," Harrison said. "Yet when it's time to act, you run off to play hero." Rebecca's hands began to shake. "It wasn't like that. Please let me explain." Harrison turned his face away. "There's nothing to explain, Harrison." "Wait," Rebecca said quickly. She reached into her handbag with shaky hands. "Just look at this," she added, opening the bag wide. She slowly brought out the bar of gold. The gold shined so bright that Harrison's eyes grew wide. He didn't say anything for a moment. He just stood still staring at it. Then his voice came out low and sharp. "Where did you get this, Rebecca? Where did you get it? Did you steal it?" Rebecca's eyes opened wide in shock. "No, I didn't steal anything." Harrison took a step closer, his eyes still on the gold. "Tell me the truth, this kind of thing." "People don't just find it on the road. I didn't find it on the road," Rebecca said softly. "Please just listen to me." Rebecca looked Harrison in the eyes. "The old woman gave it to me," she said, "after I helped her carry the water to her house." Harrison frowned. "An old woman gave you gold?" "Yes," Rebecca said, her voice calm now. "Her house was old and she looked poor, but when I helped her, she told me to bring her a small pot. The gold was inside. She said it was a gift for my kindness." Harrison was silent. He looked down at the gold, then looked at Rebecca's face. His lips moved slowly. "She just gave you this, just like that?" Rebecca nodded. "Yes, she told me to keep it for 7 days before I sell it." Harrison didn't say anything. He just kept looking at the gold. Then he slowly licked his lips and smiled. But it was not a happy smile. It was a strange smile, one that made Rebecca's heart beat a little faster. She didn't know why, but something didn't feel right after Rebecca left. Harrison stayed outside. He didn't go inside. He just sat on the small wooden bench by the wall. His eyes were fixed on the ground, but his mind was moving fast. "How can an old woman give someone gold?" he said quietly. "She lives in a broken house. She looks poor. Something is not right." He stood up, then sat down again. "I must find that woman. I must see her with my own eyes." He looked at the road where Rebecca had walked from. Then he whispered to himself, "If she gave Rebecca gold, maybe she has more." The next morning, Harrison left his house early. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. He went to the same street where he and Rebecca saw the old woman. He stood under a tree and waited. People passed. The sun got hotter, but the old woman didn't come. He came back the next day. Still, she didn't show up. It was the third day Harrison was standing by the corner of the street again. His shirt was wet with sweat, but he didn't care. Then he saw her, the same old woman she was, walking slowly with a pail of water on her head. Her feet moved gently on the dusty road. Harrison's eyes lit up. He rushed to her side. "Mama, please let me help you." "Anderson," he said, reaching for the pail. The old woman stopped and looked at him. She did not speak at first. She just looked into his eyes as if trying to read his heart. Then slowly she nodded and gave him the pail of water. Harrison balanced the water on his head and followed her quietly. He looked calm on the outside, but inside his thoughts were running fast. "This is my chance," he told himself. They got to the woman's compound, just like before. The walls had cracks, but everything was neat. Harrison dropped the pail beside the small tree and turned to face her. He forced a small tear into his voice. "Mama," he said softly, "I want to say sorry for the way I spoke to you last time." The woman looked at him. She didn't say a word. "My father is very sick," Harrison continued. "He has been in bed for days. We don't have money to buy drugs." He wiped his eyes even though no real tears came out. "I didn't know where else to go," he said. "That's why I came." He lowered his head and waited, but deep in his heart, he wasn't thinking about any sick father. He was thinking about the gold. The old woman looked at Harrison for a long time. Then she asked, "My son, do I look like someone who has money?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Harrison opened his mouth but said nothing. He just looked down and sniffed loudly, still pretending to cry. The woman sighed. She turned slowly and started walking into her small house. Harrison stood there silent. He watched her back as she walked away. Then he dropped to the ground, held his face, and made soft crying sounds. But in his mind he was thinking, if she gave Rebecca gold, she can give me too. Just as the woman got to her door, she stopped and looked back at him. "Harrison," she called. He looked up quickly. She pointed with her finger. "Go behind the house under the tree. There's a small pot, bring it to me." Harrison jumped up. "Thank you, Mama," he said, and ran to the back of the house there under a small mango tree. He saw the pot. It was dark and round, and it was covered with a piece of old cloth. He looked around. No one was there. He lifted the cloth. His eyes grew wide inside the pot. There were gold bars, not one, not two, but many. Harrison held the pot and stared at the gold inside. His hand was shaking. He looked around again. Nobody was watching. He touched one of the bars and whispered, "Should I take everything? She won't know." He paused, then he looked up at the sky and sighed. "No," he said, "I won't do that." Slowly he placed the gold bars back inside the pot. He covered it with the cloth and carried it to the front of the house. The old woman was sitting on a small bench waiting for him. He dropped the pot in front of her and forced a small smile. The old woman looked at the pot, then she looked at Harrison. She nodded slowly like she knew what he had been thinking. She opened the pot and picked one gold bar. She stood up and placed it in Harrison's hand. "Take this one," she said. "Keep it safe for 7 days, don't touch it. After that, you could sell it." Harrison nodded quickly. "Thank you, Mama," he said, but inside him he was not happy. Just one," he thought to himself. "Rebecca got one, and now me too one. But I saw more. Why can't I have all?" He smiled at the woman, but in his heart he was already planning something else. The old woman pointed behind the house. "Take the pot back where you found it," she said. Harrison nodded. "Yes, Mama." He carried the pot and started walking to the back. As he moved, he looked over his shoulder to see if the old woman was watching. As he got to the back of the house, he stopped. His heart was beating fast. He bent down, opened the pot again, and looked inside. The gold bars were still there, shining. He smiled quickly. He took 3 more bars and hid them inside his shirt. Then he closed the pot and placed it back under the tree. He wiped his hands and walked back to the front, smiling like nothing happened. The old woman was standing by the door. She looked straight at him and said, "You didn't touch anything in the pot, right?" Harrison laughed and scratched his head. "No, Mama, I only put it back like you said." The woman looked at him for a long time. Then she slowly nodded. "Okay, you can go." Harrison smiled again and turned to leave. But deep in his heart, he felt a small fear. Did she know? Did she see me still? He walked away holding the stolen gold close to his chest. It was a quiet afternoon. Rebecca came home of food items. As she walked closer to the door, she was surprised to see the old woman sitting at her doorstep. Mama, Rebecca dropped her bag. How is your health? I hope everything is okay. The old woman looked at her. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Rebecca, she said slowly, did you take my gold? Rebecca's mouth opened wide. Her heart jumped. What she said? No, Mama, I didn't. I would never do that. The old woman didn't say anything. She just kept looking at her. Rebecca's hands began to shake. I swear, Mama, she said, tears in her eyes. I didn't touch anything. After the old woman left, Rebecca sat on the floor thinking, why did she ask me that? She whispered to herself. Then her eyes became wide. Her mind went back to the gold she remembered. She told Harrison everything she remembered, how he kept looking at the gold. She closed her eyes. No, he's my friend. He can't do that. But something didn't feel right. He didn't call her. Since that day, he didn't ask how she was doing. And now the gold was missing. Rebecca held her head with both hands. What if Harrison did it? She didn't want to believe it, but deep inside her heart, a small voice whispered, check on him. Tushka, Rebecca could not sleep. Her heart was too heavy. The next morning, she walked straight to Harrison's house. She knocked hard on the door. He came out yawning. Harrison, she said, standing in front of him, did you take the old woman's gold? Harrison's eyes opened wide, then he frowned. Me? He shouted, are you okay? Why would you say that to me? Because she came to my house and asked. Rebecca said, you were the only other person who saw the gold. Harrison raised his hand in anger. Don't insult me. I don't even know her house. Then why are you shouting? Mira asked. Harrison turned away. I'm done with this nonsense, he said, and walked away, shaking his head. That evening, Harrison came back home. He was whistling as he opened the gate, but when he got to his door, he stopped. The old woman was sitting there, quiet, calm. Harrison's eyes widened. Mama, he said, why are you here? She looked up at him and asked softly, where is my gold? Harrison laughed quickly and scratched his head. Mama, I kept it where you told me to. I didn't touch anything. I swear. The woman's eyes didn't blink. She looked at him long and deep. Then she said, are you sure? Harrison nodded fast, but his hands were shaking behind his back. The old woman stood up slowly from where she sat. She looked at Harrison with calm eyes. Her voice was soft, but her words were strong. If you took it, return it now. If you don't, be ready for what will happen. Harrison opened his mouth to speak, but no word came out. The old woman turned and walked away. She didn't look back. Harrison stood at the door. His hand on the wall, he breathed fast. He looked around, then said to himself, she's just an old woman. She can't do anything. My money is coming soon. I'll be fine. He went inside and locked the door. But that night he didn't sleep. A few days later, something strange happened. People in the street saw Harrison walking around with no shoes. His clothes were dirty and torn. His hair was rough and his face looked lost. He was laughing and talking to himself. Gold, I'm rich, he shouted, throwing sand in the air. Children ran away from him. Some women closed their shops and stared. Is that not Harrison? One man asked. What happened to him? No one had an answer. Rebecca was walking down the road holding her small bag. The sun was hot and people were moving up and down. Then she saw someone coming from the other side. The person had no shoes. His shirt was torn. His hair was scattered. He was talking to himself and laughing. Rebecca stopped. Her heart jumped. She looked again and shouted, Harrison. The man stopped and looked at her. His eyes were red. His lips were dry. Harrison, is that you? She asked again. But Harrison turned his face and began to walk away, still talking to himself. Rebecca stood still. She could not believe what she was seeing. She then walked toward him before he could go far. She grabbed his shirt from the back. Stop there, she shouted. Harrison tried to pull away, but he was weak. You're not going anywhere, Mia said, holding him tight. Tell me what happened to you. Who did this to you? Harrison looked at her with tired eyes. He smiled and whispered, the gold is talking to me. Rebecca's hands shook. She pulled him to the side of the road. Harrison, talk to me. Please, what gold? What did you do? But Harrison only laughed again. and pointed to the sky. Money is sweet, he said, but it can burn your head. Rebecca looked into his eyes and felt cold all over. I hope it's not what I'm thinking. Harrison looked at Rebecca. Then he started laughing loud like someone who lost his mind. He turned in circles and threw his hands in the air. I took her gold. I took the gold. It was me, he sang. He clapped his hands and laughed again. People on the street stopped to watch as some shook their heads. Others whispered, "This boy has gone mad." Rebecca stood there, her mouth open. She moved close to him, then held his arm and asked, "You mean you stole the gold?" "Harrison, tell me the truth." And Harrison looked at her. His eyes wide, then he smiled in a strange way and started dancing in one spot. "I told the pot to keep quiet," he said, pointing to the sky. "But the pot shouted the gold was heavy, but I hid it under my shirt." "Shh, don't tell the tree." Rebecca stepped back. "Shocked you lied to me, Harrison. You said you didn't take it. Why did you lie to me?" Harrison started laughing again. "I was going to build a house in the sky. Big one with gold chairs and a talking door," he said, crawling on the ground. Rebecca covered her mouth with her hands. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Harrison had lost his mind completely, and now she knew why Rebecca looked around. People were still standing far away and watching. She held Harrison's arm tight. "You're coming with me," she said. "We're going to see that old woman now." But Harrison shouted, "No, leave me. The gold is mine, and the frogs." He tried to pull away from her. He kicked his legs and waved his hands. Rebecca held on tight. She was sweating. "Help me!" "Wait, she cried. "Please, somebody help me. Hold him." Harrison started rolling on the ground, laughing and shouting, "The sky is falling. The sky is falling." A tall man with a cap stepped forward. "What's happening here?" he asked. Rebecca turned to him, still holding Harrison's arm. "Please, sir," she said, "this is my friend. His name is Harrison. Something is wrong with him. He has lost his mind." Harrison was now crawling on the floor, talking to a stone. Rebecca continued, "I need help to take him to someone. Please help me." The man looked at Harrison and nodded. "Okay," he said, "let's carry him together. He needs help fast." Harrison suddenly stood up and shouted, "Don't let the pot see me." The man held him from one side. Rebecca held him from the other. They began to move slowly towards the old woman's house. They reached the small compound. The sun was low, the place was quiet. The old woman was sitting outside her house on a wooden bench. She had a stick beside her, and her eyes were on the ground. She didn't look up. She looked like she was deep in thought, like her heart was heavy. Her face was calm, but her eyes looked tired, as if she had been waiting for something or someone. Harrison was mumbling behind Rebecca, "The pot, the gold." The frog said, "Don't touch it." Rebecca ran to the old woman and fell on her knees. "Mama, please," she cried. "Please help." The old woman looked up slowly. Her eyes met Rebecca's. Rebecca pointed behind her. "It's Harrison. He's the one who took your gold. He lied to you, and now he has gone mad." The old woman didn't say a word. She just listened. Rebecca's voice shook. "Please help him. He keeps calling your name," he said. "Only you can help him." The old woman looked at Harrison. She took one slow step toward him. Her eyes were sharp, but her voice was calm. "When my gold got missing," she said, "I asked him, I looked him in the eye." She pointed at Harrison, who was now drawing on the ground with his finger. "And laughing, I gave him a chance," the old woman continued. "He said, no, he lied." Rebecca looked up quickly. Her eyes were full of worry. The old woman shook her head slowly. "Now what is wrong with him is not from me. It came from above. I cannot help him." She turned away. Rebecca jumped up and ran to the old woman. She held her wrapper tightly. "Mama, please," she cried. "Please do it for me." Tears fell from her eyes. "I know he did wrong. I know he took what he shouldn't have." The old woman stopped walking. "But please forgive him," Rebecca said again. "Please, I'm begging you, help him. He's suffering." There was silence even. Harrison stopped laughing. He looked up slowly, as if he heard her voice clearly. The old woman turned and looked at both of them. Then she said, "Let me think." The old woman looked at Rebecca for a long time. She saw the tears on her face. She saw how tightly Rebecca was holding her wrapper. Then she nodded slowly. "If not for your good heart," the woman said, "I will not help him. He lied, he stole, and he mocked me." She looked at Harrison. He was now sitting on the ground, pulling grass and laughing to himself. But because of you, the woman said softly, I will try. I will try for your sake. The old woman took a deep breath. She walked slowly to where Harrison was sitting. He looked up at her with a strange smile. She didn't smile back. She placed her right hand on his chest. Then she hid his chest with her palm. Once then, again Harrison's body shook. Then suddenly he fell to the ground. Flat, his eyes closed. Rebecca screamed, Mama, what happened? The old woman raised her hand in the air and said, Now we wait. The air was still. Harrison was not moving. Everyone was silent. Rebecca bent down and touched Harrison. She shook him gently. Harrison, wake up. She said, Please wake up. Harrison moved his hand, then slowly he opened his eyes. He blinked. He looked around. Where am I? He asked in a weak voice. Then he saw the old woman standing beside him. His eyes opened wide. He tried to stand and run away, but Rebecca and the man beside her quickly held him down. Stop, Harrison. Rebecca said, You're safe now. You were not well. You were mad. He looked confused. What mad? Yes. Rebecca said, You lost your mind. You were walking around with no shoes. You were talking to yourself. Harrison turned slowly to the old woman. You helped me. He asked. The woman didn't say a word. Rebecca nodded. Yes, Mama saved you. Harrison knelt on the ground. Thank you. Mama, thank you for saving me. I didn't know what I was doing. Please forgive me. Rebecca looked at him. Harrison, she said, please. Where is the gold? Tell the truth. Now Harrison scratched his head. He looked down at the ground. I gave it to someone, he said slowly. Who? Rebecca asked. Who did you give it to? I don't know his name. Harrison said, but before I blacked out, he called me. He said the gold had changed. Rebecca frowned. Changed? What do you mean? Harrison looked scared. He said the gold turned into pepper red pepper. I don't know how. That's what he told me. Rebecca stood up. She shook her head. Harrison, are you still lying, or do you think I'm a fool? I'm telling the truth, Harrison said. I swear. That's what he said. Rebecca looked at him with doubt in her eyes. The air was quiet again as Mia stood there staring at Harrison. The old woman raised her hand slowly. Rebecca, she said, wait. Mia turned to look at her. The woman's voice was calm but strong. Harrison is not lying. She said. Rebecca looked surprised. What do you mean, Mama? The old woman sat down on a wooden bench beside them. She looked at the ground for a moment, then looked back up. The gold didn't turn to pepper. She said it was taken back by the true owner. Rebecca's eyes widened. What I don't understand. The woman nodded slowly. The gold did not belong to me. I was only keeping it for someone. A spirit, when Harrison took it, the spirit came for it. That is why he lost his mind. Harrison's hands started shaking. He looked down in fear. The woman reached into her wrapper and brought out a small black bag. This, she said, is the gold. It came back to me yesterday. I didn't call for it. It just appeared here by my feet. Mira took a step back, so everything he said was true. Yes, the old woman said he was punished because he took what was not his. But now the gold is back where it belongs. Harrison fell to his knees again. I didn't know. I thought it was just money. He said. The woman looked at him and said, Not everything that shines is yours to touch. The place went silent. Even the air felt heavy. Harrison was still on his knees. His eyes were full of shame. He held his head and said, Mama, I'm sorry I didn't know. Please forgive me. I will never do such a thing again. Never. The old woman looked at him for a long time. Then she said, Greed brought this upon you. If something is not your own, leave it. Be happy with what you have. Don't let your eyes lead your heart. Harrison nodded quickly. I understand now. Mom, I understand. The woman then turned to Rebecca, her face softer now. She asked, The gold I gave you tomorrow will be the 7th day, right? Rebecca looked up. Yes, Mama, tomorrow makes it 7 days. The old woman smiled a little. Good, don't wait too long. Go and exchange it. Use it well. Use it to build your life. That gold was for someone with a good heart. It found you, because you helped me without asking for anything. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much. The woman stood up slowly. You can both go now. What needed to be done is done. Harrison bowed his head. Thank you, Mama. Rebecca also said, We're very grateful. They both walked out of the compound quietly. No one said a word, but deep inside they both knew nothing would ever be the same again, and that is how everything ended. Rebecca received her reward, not because she asked for it, but because of her kind heart. Harrison learned the hard way that when you take what does not belong to you, it will never end well. What you steal may look sweet for a moment, but in the end it'll bring shame, pain, or even madness. The moral of this story is simple. Always do good even when no one is watching. Be content with what you have. Greed destroys, but kindness opens doors that even money cannot open. Now, I would love to hear from you. What did you learn from this story? What part touched you the most? Please drop your thoughts in the comments section. I'll be reading all of them. There's another very interesting story I'll upload in a few days, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.